Hello everybody and welcome back. Thank you very much for joining me. My name's Deborah Hatswell and you're listening to BBI Investigations. The accounts you will hear tonight is the Scottish borders werewolf and Sasquatch at sunset. Today I'm sharing a series of voice messages that are part of a conversation that's taken place between myself and our witness in the case. I did not need to investigate this case as our witness has researched her own sighting and the area where she lives for over 20 years now. And she's seen some unusual activity that's taking place along the river, along with a number of cryptid creatures. Our witness's name is Claire, quite fitting, a name that represents the power of the new moon in the old tongue. Claire de Lune, as it was said, means new energy. And as you listen, you'll see just how apt that name is for Claire. She's deeply connected to the earth, nature and all its cycles. She spends hours on end in the beautiful borderlands between Scotland and England on the northeast coast, where the Northumberland hills meet the wildness of the Scottish landscape. Claire lives along the River Tweed, a river that has witnessed centuries of human history. The evidence garnered over centuries proves it is a place of prehistoric settlements, ancient battles and worship sites, and its banks hold stories and secrets, long forgotten, as it winds between the two countries in a plethora of picturesque scenery. It's easy to see why they call this the home of the giants. Claire has a deep interest in nature, but also in astrology, and she has found that there is a correlation between the creatures people see and the connection to their birth charts and their abilities to see them. It also connects to seasons, periods of the moon phases, and important astrological events. And she is also a qualified quantum hypnotherapist. Now, Claire's not looking for answers. No, she's not running in fear. She sees the creatures as natural to this universe and part of the all one. The only fear she had initially was the impact that this would have for her dogs, as they were in an unusual position, and she had no idea what the creature would do. Rather than me explain the events, let's hear from Claire as she recounts her story in her own words about her own experiences, thoughts and feelings as she shares the knowledge she's gained with us over the years.
Hi Deb. I didn't know who to talk to. I've been trying to get hold of somebody in the UK who's investigating this stuff for years. I've also been privately investigating this for about 20 years in this area where I live. Literally a stone's throw from the Scottish border. I can walk half an hour, well, 20 minutes, I'm in Scotland, and I walk my dogs along there and have done for years. I've actually seen Sasquatch there. First encounter I had was 2009. And I was out walking my dogs. I heard a huge crash in the woods. As I was walking along the woods, I turned round, my dogs started barking, and I saw this huge thing. Standing in the woods, the classic panic me, and my dogs were going mad. I'm like the fiercest dog mum in the world, the most protective dog mum in the world. My first thought was like, I didn't even get a chance to second glance it, but I just wanted to get my dogs out of the way because they were barking. I didn't want them going to attack or doing anything stupid. But I kind of just knew in my soul what it was, probably because of the work I do. I know that Sasquatch is real. So I saw Sasquatch there. He does exist along the Twill, the Tweed and the Twill where they meet. It tends to be, and one of the things I do find a lot in terms of people that I know around these parts who have also seen them, when I go and look at the location that they give me, it's going to be at a crossroads point. It's like where rivers meet, where there's a more sort of energetic meeting point, you're going to find those. I've also got all the ley lines mapped out, and you can guarantee that's where they're on the ley line. Certainly that one up in Moncton. I'm about to go up to Moncton in a couple of months with my friend. We're going to go and check it out. So Sasquatch are very, very regularly along the Tweed at those meeting places, because you constantly see the infamous sort of pixelated predator, and you can actually see it almost in the full outline. at certain times of the evening. That's another thing. There's certain times of the evening that you're likely to see them, usually about, I mean, it's either season dependent. I would say probably in the winter, I've monitored it, you'll see them about 2:30, 3 o'clock. You start seeing them sort of move around. In the summer, you've got to be there about 10, 11 o'clock before you get any kind of action. But I'm a nature girl. I'm always out in nature with my dogs, and in the summertime I'm out all hours because of fortunately being up this high, it doesn't get dark till about, we get pretty much 24 hours of daylight. It's like Alaska up here. You've got a lot of Sasquatch, first off. Second, the werewolves. It's not dogman. It's not a dog man. I don't get that vibe. I don't get any scary vibes from Sasquatch either. Last time I had an up close and personal Sasquatch encounter was the winter solstice. So around the 20th, 21st of December, which is the other thing I've also found is that you're going to see these things around certain astrological aspects. Also, you're going to see them around a new moon. A new moon is more powerful than a full moon for seeing these things from my personal experience. I'm not saying that's the way it is. I'm not by any means saying that's the way it is. I'm just letting you know what I've, researched. Now, the werewolves I've seen twice. First off, regularly sheep are found mutilated around here. What's doing that? Unless it's a big cat. Big cats have been seen. I have not seen a big cat here personally. But what I have seen is a very large black and brown, sort of reddish, large, what I thought at first was a dog running up a field, literally just in that area. And I had to pull over and stop to see what it was, because I thought, what the hell is that? Because the shoulders was the first thing that got me, because I thought that chest and shoulders, because the way it was running is too wide to be a dog. And then as I stopped and pulled over, because I was driving the car and I saw it running up the hill, and I thought, there's no way that's a dog. That's too. And I saw it, could see more clearly it was running in a gorilla type way. Okay, so that was my first encounter with this thing. And that's literally where I saw that was within a couple of, literally within a mile of my house. So I saw that a couple of months later. I was driving back on that exact same way, and I see a bipedal creature standing in that field with a kind of, I want to say the head was pretty much like American Werewolf in London, exactly like American Werewolf in London, because I physically jumped, obviously, because I was driving past and I saw it. It sort of like, it sort of shook. And all I remember seeing is the teeth. I remember seeing it was standing there, it was the teeth, sort of not growling or snarling, but just because the teeth were naturally a little bit hanging outside of the mouth. It's almost like, again, like the baboon sort of type. It's not cute looking, like a sort of dog head, like the dog sort of seal shape head, where you can sort of, it looks cute. It's not like that. It is more sort of like the snout is a little bit more sort of bashed in, like a baboon. That's what I'm going to say. Ugly looking thing, but it was standing in that field, and I drove past it. Now, going back to the work I do with astrology, here's another part of the work I was going to say. The people that I know in these parts who I talk to about witnessing these creatures, there is a signature to the birth chart, i.e. certain people are going to have more of a propensity to have, I'm going to say it, like a relationship with these things than other people, because I know you've probably heard it all by now, but I don't feel threatened by these things at all. And I know they wouldn't hurt me. I know they wouldn't. In fact, quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. I feel like they would actually look after me. Everywhere along here, this beautiful, untouched part of the UK that I live in, rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of hawthorns everywhere. Hawthorns are on the side of the road, on the side of the riverbank. Now, that's where the wee folk live, the fairies live, especially on the winter solstice. You will hear, if you go to the right places. One time I was out, if you go camping, which isn't too nice in December in Northumberland, but I have done it, or been it, or car camping, or in a van or something like that, you will see and hear the fairy folk. Every solstice, you just see the lights and you just kind of hear them go past like little muffled voices, like that, kind of hear that. When you go out walking at night, if you're out probably about the time that they like to come out, I call it, and a lot of people around here where I live, it's kind of like, because it's an untapped area, if you can get in with the local folk, quite open about it, and there's like set times of night that belongs to them and belongs to us. So again, telepathically letting them know you're coming through. But when you walk along the riverbanks at night, it's quite common. Certainly after about an hour after sunset in the summer, you will hear the fairy folk jumping and skipping and kind of whooping and little muffled voices in all along those hawthorns. This area is just so alive, and I obviously like the rest of Scotland, or a large part of the Highlands of Scotland though, because there's no bugger up here at the moment. Hopefully it stays that way. But this is a hot zone. I'm not sure if you've been up here before, but this is a really, really, like, the paranormal activity is just off the charts are in this area. It's phenomenal. So when I first saw, the first incident was with Sasquatch. So that's one, I mean, that would be my biggest fear for these poor creatures, if they were ever disclosed, would be the idiots that would go out and do this stuff, because these creatures are not going to hurt you unless you're armed to the teeth and have got, a pack of XL bullies or Rottweilers. Then yeah, they're going to flipping well defend themselves, aren't they? Poor things. Anyway, it's that side. So the first time I saw Sasquatch, I was out with my two dogs, my two large dogs, and one was a black Labrador, and the other one was a Dalmatian. And the Dalmatian just started going berserk, barking. And I looked to my left. I was walking down a dirt track in a very heavily wooded area. So it was like a mini, not a forest, but it was attached to. So it was a vast sort of wooded area, I'd say, that's attached to a forest, and another forest that basically leads all the way down to the River Tweed, because again, it's very vast up here. So I turned to my left and I saw, my dog started barking and the other dog started barking, and they were sort of jumping up as dogs do when they get really excited. As if, oh, holy crap, we've got something that's bigger than us type thing. Dogs start sort of jumping up to try and gain height. So I looked to my left and I saw this thing shuffling in the woods. Now, the first thing that I spotted was like this cone-shaped head at the top, and obviously the size of the shoulders, and it was a dark sort of brownish reddish sort of hint, and I just said, right, that's it, me and the dog. I was like, run, 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 don't look back, because my only concern was that my dogs would get into an argument with this thing and they wouldn't win. And so my feeling afterwards was that it wasn't harmful. I wasn't shaken up. I was just more so surprised. Now, from my experiences of walking up and down the Tweed, which I do every single day, and I have done for the last 15 years because I have dogs and it's a beautiful place to walk. I rescue dogs, so I've always got dogs with me, to being aware of them. So I think once your own personal consciousness has expanded to that level of being able to see these things, or being open to see these things, if you're out there at certain times, like I said before, I'm an astrologer, I've noticed certain moon phases, certain astrological aspects that happen. Astrology plays a role because the planets, whether people choose to believe in astrology or not, is 100% accurate. They do affect us, because the planets of we are nothing more than a vibration. The planets, every single planet vibrates on a different level. When the planets move into a different sign, we feel that shift, and those planets then affect us and what we are actually, our own levels of consciousness and how we are likely to experience things according to our own specific natal charts. Usually when cryptids appear, there will be a certain planetary aspect involving the planet Neptune is usually the planet that is very, very active when you see these creatures. And you will also find that people who have a lot of Pisces energy, like self, Deborah, or people who are very sort of Neptune dominant, are more likely to see these things. And the reason for that is, when you have a heavy duty amount of like Pisces or Neptune or the sign of Sagittarius in your natal chart, it kind of gives you the ability to see beyond the veil, which is where, from the line of work I have done with the quantum healing hypnosis technique, is I have been told time and time again by people under hypnosis that these cryptids reside on the lower fourth dimension. Now, because we live in the third dimension, we're not able to see them that clearly, but people who are a little bit more highly tuned have done some work to expand their consciousness and have the specific like natal placements, or a certain sort of natal placements in their natal astrological birth chart. And the predator esque pixelation thing that everybody is reported seeing, I have actually seen up close and personal. The moon phase was a new moon. It was right near the solstice. Usually on a new moon, you're more likely to see them. The actual outline itself is heavily pixelated, but what I saw, it sort of stepped out in front of me. Again, my dogs were with me. When they see them, they just kind of sort of look up and stare. Certainly when it's like the predator kind of scenario, I do not get any bad vibes from these things. One of the reasons why is because of the work I've done. I do walk around now sort of in my mind saying, not going to hurt you guys. I'm not here to harm you. I'm not here to interfere with you. I'm also somebody who treats out of peanut butter and porridge and nuts and things like that for the squirrels. So I'm always out sort of handing those out. I put sort of rodent vitamins in there, so there's, because we have red squirrels here, so I want to make sure they're fed and looked after. So I'm one of those people that's out doing that a lot. So I feel, because of that, and I speak to these things because I know they telepathically, they just sort of look the other way. But like I said, one has actually stepped out in front of me with the predator pixelation, and I could actually see the outline. It was a huge, obviously I would say about 8 foot, just the pixelation up in front of me, and it just sort of moved out of one tree, walked in front of me, crossed my path, and went to the other side. And this was walking down a slope towards the river, a quite high sort of slope down towards the river. I didn't feel any fear. I didn't feel threatened. I just sort of felt it was the energy I received from it was, you go about your business, I'm just going about mine. There was nothing in the slightest that was, very troubling to me. And that is something that you see quite regularly if you are in the heavily wooded parts, walking along the riverbank. You will see the pixelation. Sometimes I've seen it I usually sort of see it out of the corner of my eye. And it's usually, like I say, around a new moon, when the planet Neptune is making quite a strong aspect. The planet Neptune's been very active. He's always very active whenever you see these things. And yeah, or during Sagittarius season or Pisces season, which is, as you know, spring for Pisces, and Sagittarius season is always, November 20th to the 21st of December. So this is really when There's sort of the veil was a little bit thinner at that time also. So those have been my encounters. The other encounter, obviously the werewolf, yeah, I've seen it running up a field. I saw what I thought was a large black dog. I stopped the car to watch it, and I thought, that is no dog. And I thought, that is not either. And I thought, is it one of the big cats? No, big cats do not run with a shoulder span that wide. It was running like a gorilla. Not so long after that, drove past and I saw it standing in the field, like a bipedal dog. I jumped out of my skin because I was driving past it. I just remember seeing the feet, the teeth, and a baboon type snout. But I remember seeing the actual bottom jaw that was quite very toothy sort of bottom jaw, and it just, So I mean, but as far as the Sasquatch, 100%, they are woods wandering about. They don't seem to be too much of a problem as far as I'm concerned. The only thing I've ever seen along there that is not nice is I do see a lot of sheep mutilations, and the sheep, the way that they are killed, as nasty, it is, you can see it hasn't been killed by anything that you can see. It's been mutilated. You can tell it's not a big cat. You can tell it's not a dog. And I know it's graphic, but you know that, I think I've heard you speak about this before, Deborah, that if it's a dog or a big cat, they'll tend to go for the liver or that part of the animal first. No, you see these sheep sometimes and they're just ripped to pieces. I think like a prey animal is a little bit more strategic. A prey animal that we're aware of is a little bit more strategic when they kill something.
I feel that Claire is a noticer of patterns, like myself, and it would seem once again we have the usual patterns at play, and I've mentioned them many times before, in the fact that Claire is a lady who lives amongst nature and has done for decades. She has a close affinity to it, and with animals. In fact, she rescues and heals them, and has done for the majority of her life. And like many people before her, who are exactly the same, it was a simple dog walk along the River Tweed in 2009 that brought her into contact with the first cryptid creature. As Claire walked her dogs, she heard a huge crashing sound, and both dogs instantly reacted to it. And when she looked to her left to see what was worrying the dogs, she was confronted with the creature that is said to be impossible here on our isle. A creature of great size, that's hair covered, thickly muscled, that seemed impervious to her presence. So much so that she had no fear attached to the event. She was worried for her dogs, yeah, but not for herself. She left the area with the knowledge that, she'd suspected all along was true. She was not out here on her own. But like so many others in the same situation, that sighting was not to be her last. And as she searched for answers, she also searched online in the hopes of finding someone who would listen to her findings. But that never panned out until we met. When we met online, started to chat, and she opened up with her findings. After the initial encounter with the creature on the dog walk, Claire would begin to notice what many of us would call a predator being. A being with no real body to speak of, but a moving, prismatic creature that is seen and reported often in the UK. The encounters with the beings for Claire are never fearful. It's more like if she accepted the Sasquatch creature as real, another world began to open up for her, like a door into fairyland of legend. After that, she saw them so often, she could time their presence along the river and also notice a seasonal shift in activity. And it was after this that Claire saw the werewolf-like creature that was moving like a gorilla away from her. She stopped the car to watch it. She thought it was a large, muscular dog at first, but its shoulders were far too wide for that. Like the shucks of old, this was a creature all of its own. And within a couple of weeks, as she drove down the same road, she saw the same creature. And this time he was standing upright, on two legs, like a human being, as he watched her. drive by. It didn't hide from her, and it didn't approach her either. I think it was more of a, I know that you see me, and I see you experience. Claire described this being's facial features as baboon-like, with fanged teeth and a shorter muzzle than a domestic dog. To her, it looked like the creature from the film, An American Werewolf in London, rather than an Alsatian or, say, a German Shepherd dog would look. Over time, she realised that these creatures also have a seasonal and moon pattern correlation, as do the people that see them. If we remove the words Bigfoot, Sasquatch, dogman, werewolf from the equation, what we could be talking about could maybe be a paranormal creature, a mystical being, as old as time itself. Yet we view them with a very modern eye and a very modern knowledge base. I suppose what I'm trying to say is, are the Fae of old the creatures that we see now? As interchangeable beings, is it us humans that shape their appearance to fit what's acceptable to our inner self? Or do they show themselves in different ways to different people? Is the Shook of old our modern day dogma? Are the hairy boggarts and woodwolves now our British Bigfoot, sometimes called the UK Wildman? For me, it seems if our history changes, so do the names of the beings we encounter. But the description, the habits, the known abilities are exactly the same. For example, in the olden times, when things had gone missing from the farms and smallholdings, we used to blame it on the Fae. So, say, cattle field, blankets, straw and tools would go missing. Tails and manes would be plaited intricately, sometimes with flowers added. And we'd curse the wee folk for it. Some old folk tales advise leaving them milk and honey to placate the Fae. But I've taken reports of British Bigfoot in barns, even taking sheep or pigs, raiding feed bins, and in one case, repeated visits by a hairy humanoid creature around harvest became the norm. Over the border in Scotland, there is a lady in a similar situation as Claire, who's walked the woods of Nairn and Culben Forest for decades, and she's noticed the strangest of things that don't seem to stand out to other visitors in the forest. She's seen the same fairy lights as Claire, sometimes called ghost lights. They appear at night and in the daytime. In one instance, one light crossed the path in front of her as she walked to rescue dogs in the daytime. And both ladies live on the same coastline. On several occasions, the dogs have reacted in a way that suggests that there was a large predator at the site and refused to carry on a route they normally love. She has found deer legs hung up in the trees, stones and boulders on top of 10-foot tree snaps, and all manner of strange lights, orbs, sounds, glyphs, and woodland shelters. She's seen the same bulky, dark figures that the locals report as stealing fish from the nets, or they take items from the farm buildings, and on one instance had half a salmon thrown at a family member. His dog reacted to something growling just beyond the cottage wall, and that sent his cats scurrying under their beds. There have also been many cattle and sheep attacks here, and since the 1980s, that has been blamed on large, non-native cats that have been set free in the area. Now, many of these animals found have wound patterns that do not fit that of a large cat or a domestic dog. In some areas of Scotland, there have been sheep found that have only had their liver taken, and their fleece is peeled from the flesh in an intricate way, the same way a human would do it, but the meat and the fleece are left behind. A number of local farmers took to calling it the bone crusher, after many of their sheep had their spines or bones crushed through. I live on the opposite coast as both the ladies. I'm in the northwest of England. But the same kind of creatures are reported here. We have the same strange sheep and cattle kills. Several of the kills here looked as if the ewes had been rammed into a stone wall in 2021, and in some cases the spines were actually twisted. One local farmer now refuses to put his sheep in the field due to this, and as members of a local paranormal team seem to trespass on his fields constantly, it disturbs his flock at vital times like tupping and lambing time, and that's had a large effect on his farm. And he's not the only one. Several horse owners have reported experiences with a creature that they call the Winter Hill Beast around their cattle or stables. 3 women and a man in 2012 during the Jubilee beacon fire was followed downhill by something that kept itself within the shadows at all times. Their dogs reacted to it, and it growled loudly. It shadowed them down the hill, at one point hurdling a stone wall in one leap. Another group of folk who took an alternative route down White Coppice Gorge were also stalked, and that was on the same night. Not too long ago, 2 men who were on the moor really late at night walked into the carcass of a sheep that had its rib cage torn apart. I was contacted by one of the men's wives the next day, and both men were happy to share their testimony as to what happened to them that night. The men were around 3/4 of a mile away from the Chinese Gardens, an area where there is a previous sighting of an upright humanoid figure known as the Bear Man of Rivington, seen by a woman as she crouched for a call of nature. Now, the men arrived, got out of their car and set off. Both men had torches, and as they walked, they realised that they'd almost stepped into a carcass of some kind. Shining their torches onto it, they both saw a sheep that seemed to have been almost pulled in half. The carcass was steaming, even with the rain and the cold night air, so it was probably seconds before that it was killed, and whatever killed it would not be too far away. It was a very fresh kill. One man described the carcass as unusual. The head was missing, and the rib cage was snapped in 2. As they were discussing what animal could have made that kill, they both heard a rumbling, bassy, growling sound. Alarmed by this, both men scanned the area around them with their torches, looking to see what had growled at them in the night. One of the men saw a dark, stocky outline that seemed to have reddish eye shine, and he caught that in his torchlight. The shape dipped quickly out of view and was gone. They both left quickly and got back into the car. Both men were really shaken up, were still in bewilderment. Even on making it to the car, they didn't feel safe. The growls were around them and followed them back the whole way. The younger of the 2 men stated that he felt almost hysterical, and he was kind of laughing nervously due to his fear, that he was feeling. He's not prepared to return up that hill at night alone, which he's done many times in the past before and never had a problem. He said as far as he was concerned, even if they were both armed, it would have been impossible to shoot whatever was out there with them, due to the sheer size of one of the dark shapes and the sound of the growl. He turned his air rifle around to use it as a bat at that point, as he knew shooting it would be pointless. The remaining sheep in the field had flocked together and looked scared and worried, and they were acting really strange. The growling continued all through the event. It was a loud, rumbling, growling noise. The younger of the 2 men wondered if this could be paranormal, as the growl was so scary, and they both felt watched and stalked all the way back to the car. It was around midnight on a wet night in a desolate place, and they saw no humans on the way in or out of the area. The older man said to cover his fear, he joked, "I think we need bigger guns." They pulled over at this point, trying to get themselves together. They felt helpless, nervous. It was a sickening feeling, almost like fighting in the dark. After the event, the men tried to find the growl they heard using Google Sounds and known animal recordings here in the UK on the phone. They did not find a match with anything. The only sound that matched was a reported noise of a werewolf on a recording on YouTube of the American Werewolf in London. Both men agreed the sound was the same as they'd heard that evening. I feel at this point I should point out that it's not just the areas I've mentioned here tonight with the insane patterns, creatures and sightings. We can replicate these cases in all of our counties. All across the UK and Ireland, even on our offshore islands, there are cases just like this. Some known, some forgotten, some never told. From a time of different understanding, as our forefathers tried to unravel the mystery of the Fae and all that contains. So do we, with our modern day creatures. We don't understand them. We see them as mystical and magical, and they could very well be that. Mona has an understanding that I don't have, so I'm not coming from her perspective. I'm hoping that she can teach me and make me understand, because patterns are something that I can work with. But I can think of several places off the top of my head where we could go and almost read out the same story, but just change the name of the witness. The situations are similar. The witnesses themselves are similar. Their interest in the subjects, all manner of things, many of them out walking, hiking, horse riding, as I do often. When I'm up on Winter Hill, I don't ever forget the creatures that have been reported there. And people think I'm incredibly brave for doing it. But I have my husband with me and a dog and a car that I can jump in and get away as quickly as I want. What about the lone traveller, the wild camper? The person out on the home. Lots of people walk the moors, fell runners, all manner of leisure pursuits happen up there. And honestly, in the daytime, it is now absolutely crammed. If you went to the snack shack, you can queue an hour to get a coffee. And the last guy who lived in that sold it because of what he saw on the moor one night, packed his family up and moved back to Liverpool and lived in his daughter's council house. So whatever he saw must have been bad. I go up there because I watch the owls and the bats and the deer and the baby deer, and sheep, cows, horses. It's what I love. It's my, I don't know, my safe place, I suppose. But I don't hang around much after dark. And like I say, I normally have company with me. It's a mystical place, Nobody knows what White Coppice is. There's standing stones up there. The ley energy up there's strong. It's just one of those places, I suppose. And in the next few months or so, I'll go out to those places and actually record in them and share the sightings with you in a smaller format so they're easy to take in. But I've really enjoyed sharing with you guys tonight. Over the past couple of weeks, we've covered some really good subjects, and it's amazing to see the community growing and accepting. I've got more interviews like this to come that you can listen to. But please, it would be really helpful if you could give us a like. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe. A lot of my listeners are not subscribed to me. And we have started a TikTok channel. And the description below has a link to that TikTok channel where I'll be sharing witness reports. Either me in the area giving you the story or the witness themselves speaking about the event. I'm sure you'll enjoy that. So, until next time, I will bid you all farewell. The same day, same time, next week. Good night, everyone.